All right, guys, close your eyes for a minute and imagine that you've just been arrested and sentenced to prison. Oh, seriously, all of you, close your eyes. Okay. So it's the summer of 1880, and you're being sent to the halls of justice in New York City, unofficially named the Tombs. When you get there, you're led through the hot, stuffy hallways to your new cell, carefully stepping over the holes and cracks in the cement on the way. The guards shove you into your new room, and it's only 11 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 8 feet tall, but you'll be sharing it with 2 other cellmates. So looking around, you see one small bed in the corner, only 2.5 feet wide, and with your cellmates having already figured out how to share that bed, you're stuck with the floor. So you'll spend a hot, sleepless night on the cracked and decaying ground as rats scurry around you and even over you on occasion. All right, you guys can open your eyes now. So this might have been a sort of worst case scenario. This was the reality of many American prisoners before and during the Gilded Age. So with these progressive ideas just starting to take hold of the American prison system, changes were coming. And as the old pre-existing prisons were falling apart and new reformatories were springing up all across the country, there were different goals and ideas on rehab than ever before. So this idea of progressivism is defined by criminology doctorates Thomas Blomberg and Carol Luckin as movements aimed at improving social, political, and economic life. So with this in mind, it's clear that the penal institutions of the United States progressed in many ways throughout the Gilded Age, but we'll see that they still had a long way to go. So as I described earlier, the Tombs, which was one of the prisons that Charles Guiteau was held in at one point, was absolutely dreadful, but many other institutions weren't much better. One major reason the Tombs was so unsanitary was because of the overcrowding. 3 people lived in a room that was only 11 feet by 6 feet. So to put that into perspective, the average dorm room here at Northwestern is approximately 11 feet 3 inches by 16 feet 3 inches, and it's only shared by 2 people. So that's an average of 91 square feet per person here versus 22 square feet per person at the Tombs. I actually did the math. So here's a scale model of a prison cell to give you an idea of just how small they are. There's a bed and people in there, so you can pass that around. So all across America, these prisons were falling apart because they were falling victim to these problems of overcrowding. And this was due in part to a change in the rationale of imprisonment caused by the Civil War, so more people were being incarcerated. And this was also caused by an increase in war veterans and immigrants entering the country. So it was becoming obvious that the prison system needed some restructuring, and this included expanding the number of facilities to hold all these new people entering the system. There were some other new strategies like indeterminate sentencing, parole, probation, juvenile court, and reformatories. So first, I'm just going to talk about a couple of these other, well, here's a couple rooms of the Tombs there. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these other strategies. So indeterminate sentencing basically meant that a prisoner was sentenced to a minimum of 1 year, and after that, their behavior determined how long their sentence would be after that. Parole is a strategy that we still use today in our prison system. It actually was started around the Gilded Age, and it is the ability for a convict to be released from jail due to his or her good behavior. So while these were some big changes in the way the system was run, one of the most important changes was the use of reformatories. So reformatories were rehabilitation facilities that were instituted in response to the Declaration of Principles, which said the supreme aim of prison discipline is the reformation of criminals, not the infliction of vindictive suffering. So contrary to prisons where the aim is to punish, reformatories were focused on the rehabilitation of the prisoner. The first and largest one built was the Elmira Reformatory, which opened in, it is that one, okay, not bad. It opened in 1876, and Zebulon Brockway, the first warden of Elmira, wanted the place to feel more like a school or a hospital than a prison. So because of this, it was later called College on a Hill or a Reformatory Hospital. So here's a classroom and then like a gym where they did other classes and stuff like that. So reformatories sounded like a really good idea, right? And they were, in theory. But in execution, they fell remarkably short of excellence. They had a lot of problems, including overcrowding, understaffing, poor execution, and mismanagement. In fact, Brockway, the first warden of Elmira, was known to be exceedingly violent and brutal. And even without him, the reformatory itself was scandal-ridden and the inmate population was rebellious. So basically in Elmira there were 3 grades, and prisoners entered in on the 2nd grade, which meant that they worked 8-hour days, and then they had no other special privileges. And then if they were promoted to 1st grade, they had a lot of special privileges like visitation rights, longer bedtime and library hours, stuff like that. And then demotion to the 3rd grade meant like none of that. Basically had no rights. So with all those grades, the overall goal of reformatories was to build up the character of the inmates and instill a sense of self-regulated discipline in them. Now, Elmira wasn't the only reformatory in the country. Actually, there were a lot of other states that opened up similar facilities. However, once they proved to be pretty ineffective, very few were opened after 1920. Instead, the prison system began to move toward the more modern system that we know today. So overall, the Gilded Age was a period of reform and progress, or lack thereof. So with prisons in a state of disrepair, it was evident that the penal system of the United States needed some changes. The idea of rehab was a really good one, but the execution was generally pretty poor. And this poor execution was especially evident at Elmira because of the abuse of all the inmates and stuff. So because of this poor execution, the age of reformatories pretty much began and ended with the Gilded Age. All right, now close your eyes one last time. I promise this is the last time. And this time you're an inmate at Elmira. So again, your cell is overcrowded, but at least the reformatory offers many different things for you to do, including trade schools, a labor system, and military training. Your days are then filled with seemingly endless work, but if you don't cooperate, you'll be abused mentally and physically, as the warden is known for beating inmates who don't do what he wants. Methods of punishment include whippings, months of incarceration in dark dungeons, diets of bread and water, and other psychological torture. So though coming to a reformatory originally seemed like a really good idea, you quickly learn it's nearly as bad as the tombs. Thank you.